are like the splash zone.
All right, for our last talk today, I'm going to introduce a man who needs no introduction.
Awesome. That's the way to start with it. Hello, everyone. Has anyone ever been to a Jason Scott talk before? Oh, sorry, who hasn't? Let's go with that one. All right, good. I guess you're just coming because like the other two talks looked like they were going to just be more bunk. By the way, that UAV talk was awesome. Yes. Every talk was like that. That's the talk I like. I have a presentation online called The Presentation, where I talk about why a lot of presentations at cons suck and ways to get around them. And that UAV talk to me is a gold standard because he had the goods, he presented them cleanly, he sounded good, he showed you good stuff, and he finished it. We'll see if that happens here. But I just wanted to say that, 'cause I want that on record somewhere, man, because some people might go like, oh, UAV, what's that, some sort of like voltage regulator? And it's like, no, this guy flew in the... Anyway, name of this talk is called The Splendiferous Story of Archive Team and the Rapidly Disappearing Digital Heritage. It was a talk that I had hoped to give some time ago elsewhere, and just as time has gone on, as I've been involved in this kind of a project, it just happened to coincide with ShmooCon really nicely. And so ShmooCon is the place that will get it. I don't tend to give a talk more than once, so each one's a specially crafted little egg for you. Anyway, so my name is Jason Scott. I run a site called textfiles.com. I've done a lot of work with things like documentaries and giving speeches and so on. And I do all these sort of crazy things. Like I said, historian, archivist, troublemaker, cat owner, dysentery survivor. I survived dysentery just this past January. And that's not a disease you're supposed to get in the 21st century, but I got it, so there you go. The solution is to take antibiotics, which was the secret move that people in the 1800s didn't get. I also want to put a quick little shout out here. Last year, I either left or was made to leave my job. And I had been using my job like a digger wasp uses a victim, which was basically I was doing my own thing a lot. And my job eventually was like, we don't like that you only do your own thing. And I was like, bye, thanks for the money. And I thought, where do I want to go next with this? And I thought, I really enjoy this computer history thing. Wouldn't it be neat if I could do that all the time? And all these projects that I've been working on that have been somewhat delayed, wouldn't it be neat to do that? And so I put out this call, and I came up with this idea, and I put it out on something called Kickstarter, which is a fundraising engine. And it was a really weird thing. It was, hi, here's all these different projects I've worked on. If you give me enough money to live for a bunch of months, I'll do nothing but that. And to my great happiness, 342 people got together, gave me $26,000, and funded me. So I am officially self-employed as a computer historian for hopefully most of 2010. This particular image came from a place that was making fun of me, and that's an actual image of me drinking an energy drink, which they then proceeded to put the pimp hat on. And the contrast, unfortunately, of projectors isn't very good, so you can't actually see the cat that's in the microwave. You're not missing much. The cat's like this. All right? So what I do is I find a lot of computer history and get into it, and I am really into collecting old stuff. This is a U-Haul containing most of the business documents of the early days of the Free Software Foundation, which the person who had it wanted to get rid of. And everyone else had said, well, I want this item, and it would be really nice, and the rest of it you can get rid of. And I was the only one who said, I'll come by with a U-Haul truck. So I came by with the U-Haul truck. And there's all sorts of things in there, like a complete run of Byte magazine and things like that, which is all very cute, but actually it gets really big. And so there's just like complete issues of Usenix and everything else that I've been bagging, tagging, putting together, collecting it, until finally we have the information cube, the textfiles.com information cube, which is actually full of computer history and all sorts of things, and I'll be sorting through that over the course of this next year. So what I'm saying is I really like to do things big, large, and stupid, and including saving important artifacts like eBay the board game, which came out in 2000 and was, as you can tell, a huge hit, because I'm sure you're all remembering your childhoods when you were playing eBay the auction game. As it says, You don't have to go online to bid and buy eBay style. Oh, it's good. Isn't that great? History is goddamn awesome. How awesome is it? Well, one of the things is it really kind of lets you look back on things and see how things have changed. These are what Coke bottles looked like from the early days of their existence all the way to the relatively current days. And there's all sorts of different messages and knowledge and things that we pick up from that. Again, here's a shot of Afghanistan. From the left here, here's the photo shoot that it was from, and that's the exact same place in contemporary history today. Because there's this kind of myth that like Afghanistan always sucked as much as it did, and the answer is no, actually it was like this really cool cosmopolitan history, and things like this illustrate for you in seconds what it's like. It also allows you to see some really interesting, awful ideas that people had. Like for instance, this beautiful Colt ad that if people on the right can't see, it's got a big gun and it says, "Isn't it time you gave yourself a Christmas gift?" Yeah, excellent, awesome. Was anything? All right. So, of the things that I do, there's these specific items that I have, in the past few years, kind of really been known for, which is, yes, I do this computer history, but a lot of people do computer history, and a lot of people do other stuff with archiving, and they'll talk about it. But I seem to have this real good talent for saying the absolute worst thing that gets the most attention is the most agitative, some of which you're going to hear today. And it's just one of those things that I do because I'm really passionate about things. And so the troublemaker and the media critic is what's active, but even more importantly, the consistent asshole. I'm a real asshole about certain things, and I've had a lot of great conversations from people that work along the lines of, you are doing good work in a really shitty way. And when people define it that way, like there's different variables for amounts of shitty. And what it usually comes down to is people think I'm a little too bombastic, or a little too weird, or a little too out there in statements that I make. And I want to make it clear that I hope that if you find that that's the case when I talk about this particular subject, that you don't come away concentrating too much on the idiot that presented it to you and more on the concept behind it, because I still think that concept is inherently important no matter who got you to first think about it. An example of me causing this was where I started to criticize Wikipedia, and I wrote an article called The Great Failure of Wikipedia in 2004 that got a lot of attention and got me nailed as the Wikipedia critic for a while, which is, by the way, a really terrible position because then people collaborate to fuck with you. And then they edit each other to make sure the fucking with you is even more effective. And they consider me not notable. Similarly, there was one I wrote called Fuck the Cloud, which is a very interesting way to discuss cloud computing. I got the most awesome phone call from the organizer of Cloud Camp that day about, like, why? And I don't want to go too much into, like, why or not liking the cloud. My biggest issue with the cloud can be summarized as a lot of people now use the term until it is meaningless, and it proposes a way of looking at the world in which you are encouraged to keep track of your data in the most lighthearted fashion to the point that you are utterly incapable of understanding where it is, what it's going to, and whatever else. And so there's a lot of people right now who are like, just use the upload and give us your data and figure it out later. So in other words, it may have some actual useful debate there, but fuck the cloud was very interesting because I wrote it that way to see which organizations would reprint it. And actually a pretty good number were willing to link to it at least, to go like, there seems to be some debate about the cloud at this site. But this was the one that I wanted to talk about today, Datapocalypso. Datapocalypso showed up on my weblog. This is my weblog, ascii.textfiles.com, where I say awful things all day. And this particular entry was about the concept of the fact that backup policy is really kind of weird right now. Like, we all know we should back stuff up. Just like we all know there's a whole variety of things we should do to avoid people getting pregnant. And yet people get pregnant by mistake all the time. And we lose backups all the time, or we turn around and go, oh, you're right, I didn't back up once. And so there's like this very weird disconnect. And that we were heading into an era where we were going to be capable of losing more data more quickly that meant stuff, But even more than that there was a current environment about data in which data wasn't as important as anything else. It was considered to be it is considered to be kind of a sideline effect of being online, that you happen to be generating data. Just like if you're watching TV, you're generating time. It's not really important that you're generating time, you're watching TV. Well, if you're working online, you're just generating data, and there's a real sense of that, of like, don't worry about the data, just do what you do and have fun with it. And what I was specifically very unhappy about was something about AOL Hometown. Now, AOL Hometown was a put your own website on our site that AOL ran. It allowed you to generate a homepage. And so people had, for years, created AOL Hometown homepages, which had all of their information and stories and everything else. And then one day, AOL said, sorry, we're going to shut it down. Bye. And that was the full extent of it. They gave you some arbitrary warning, I think it was 60 days, and said, bye. And then one day, now bear in mind that the way that they notified people was they just sent mail out to the last known email address, most of which bounced, because these things had been around for years. And then when AOL went down, when it actually went down, AOL Hometown went down, they just redirected every single page to this one weblog entry saying, hi, we shut down. And the comments on that thing are heartbreaking. There are people who are just like, I couldn't figure out how it worked. What do I do now? People who are like, my husband died, and he never gave me the password, and this was my only connection to him in his days in the Air Force. How do I get the pictures back? To which there's no answer. I mean, they never answered the blog. It was a fake blog. A blog implies a person, an actual human being, communicating with you about things on a time-based fashion and then responding to your queries. That's not what that was. This was a press release with a comment section. And so people were miserable. And I said, this is going to be it. This is what's going to happen. This is going to happen over and over again. We're going to lose websites, and people are going to be like, oh, that's a shame. And right now there's this whole variation on that. So like, for instance, here's one that's, no one should really give a shit about, which is Yahoo had something called Kickstart, which was meant to be your way of putting your resume online, and just one day it disappeared. And they said, yep, why don't you use Yahoo Hot Jobs? That's like using this. And it was out. Now, in that particular case, all you lost was your resume, which in theory you kept another backup of, I hope. But in this case, again, you get this nice, pretty little stock photo of a woman with a light bulb, which I still don't understand. And then go to Yahoo Jobs, go to a thing like we were now that we're gone. We're done. This happens all the time. Places are constantly going down now. Microsoft Encarta died. Woohoo! And the other places like Yahoo Briefcase. Now, Yahoo Briefcase is very interesting. It was a place that went down that stored up to 20 megabytes of your personal data. Its purpose was to be a good place to store all that when you didn't have any on your home machine in 1998. And it had been around for 10 years. And one day, they announced, we're closing it in 60 days. Bye. And I was like, you don't have a spare thumb drive? Are you guys out? What are you out? Why are you doing this? What is your problem? For instance, a place like Coghead, which I don't even remember what they're about. They're gone. They've gotten rid of whatever they're doing, and somebody else had bought them out. So they basically are closing down because someone bought them. Trim, well, we'll deal with Trim in a moment, but Encarta was basically like, wow, we really fucked up trying to do an encyclopedia online. We're closed. Encarta was basically Microsoft's encyclopedia product, and guess what? They just couldn't keep it up, so they closed it. You can almost find those motivations, but Briefcase really struck me because there was something about Briefcase closing. Such a small, insignificant site. Such a meaningless little thing. Why would someone kill that? And the only reason I can come up with it killing it is that a middle manager had to show movement within his small fiefdom. And the way he could show it was that he was shutting down a very likely non-financially lucrative site to show that this quarter there had been action within his little fiefdom. I'm really at a loss to come up with any other solution or concept that would cause someone to go like control